be as silly as to ask if you can hear me. If you can't answer the question. Okay, I'll call on the town clerk to read the call to the meeting and the constable's return.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Worcester SS, to either of the constables of the town of Berlin in the county of Worcester. Greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town, qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs, to meet at the Berlin Memorial School in said Berlin on Monday, the 7th day of May, 2018 next, at 7:30 o'clock in the evening, and on Tuesday, the 8th day of May, 2018 next, at 7:30 o'clock in the evening, then and there, to act on the following articles or in relation thereto. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof as per vote of the town in said town 7 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of meeting as aforesaid. Given under our hands this 13th day of April in the year of our Lord 2018. Board of Selectmen, Thomas Andrew, Chairman, Christine Keefe, Vice Chairman, Lisa Wysocki, Clerk. A true copy attest, Timothy Pierce, Constable, Worcester SS. Pursuant to the within warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Berlin by posting up attest copies thereof at the town hall, the town offices, and the post office 17 days before the time of holding said meeting as within directed. Timothy Pierce, Constable, April 21, 2018.
I'm Barry Yeager, the town moderator. With me on the platform is Eloise Sauls, our town clerk. Directly in front of me are Christine Keefe and Lisa Wysocki, Selectmen of Berlin. I might tell you that Thomas Andrew is indisposed. He's unable to be here with us this evening. And on your left is the Finance Committee. Dave Westerling, Stan Rogolinsky, and Buzz, and Buzz Harris, who will be, these are all people that make a lot of motions, and I like to introduce them so I don't have to have everybody do the other business. Other people that speak in the meeting, as you get up to speak, please identify yourself with your name and your address, and that just helps everybody understand who's who as we go through the time. I'm going to move on to the business, and we'll start with business under Article 1 and subsequent. Chris?
Good evening. I move to approve the motions as printed under Article 1 through 6 of the warrant for this meeting.
Motion made and seconded to approve the motions as printed under Articles 1 through 6 of the warrant for this meeting. You can see those articles on page 95, including the motions that are written under them. All of these are actions that we've taken in the past, and we regularly do each year. Is there anyone that wants to speak, to ask any questions or make any comments at this time about any of these motions? This would also be the appropriate time. If you have a written report in the town report that you think needs to be added to, this is the time to do it. Hearing no one, I will ask you to vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 7. To hear and act on the reports of any outstanding committees. There's no motion to be made under this article. Does anybody else have a report to file from a town committee that has not yet appeared in the town report? If not, we will move on to Article 8. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or borrow or transfer from available funds or otherwise provide unnecessary sums of money to defray the town's expenses for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2018, and to determine the salaries of the town officers for that period. We will now be taking up a series of motions under Article 8, and it will be helpful to you if you go to page 88 in the town report. Beginning at page 88, we have the Finance Committee's recommended budget, and we'll now start to have the motions made under that budget. Buzz?
I'm Buzz Harris from the Finance Committee. Mr. Moderator, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,017,476 to cover items 1 through 46 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget.
Where's the one? Mary, do we have the single sheet for this? Do we have a single sheet for each of these motions? Not single sheets. Never mind. We'll take care of it.
We changed the procedure and didn't tell Barry.
The motion is to raise and appropriate $1,017,476 to cover items 1 through 46 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget. Since this is the Finance Committee's motion, it is their recommendation. Is there anything you want to say further on this one? No. Anybody else want to speak to this motion? Dennis Virabay, Town Treasurer.
Mr. Moderator, I move to change line item 17, treasurer's salary, from $44,378 to $45,211, and line item 18, wages part-time, from $20,885 to $22,290, and line item 23, expenses, from $15,060 to $15,540 in the 2019 Finance Committee budget, general government. And total general government from $1,017,476 to $1,017,476 to $1,021,194.
Dennis, tell me this has treasurer's expenses at $22,788, and you're making it $15,060 to $15,540.
Right.
You're lowering it.
No, it's going up to $15,540.
No, you're not looking in the book. You gotta go look in the book. The numbers aren't the same number. So. That one's tax collector.
Right.
Is the other one up?
The other two are treasurer.
Okay, all right, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, the motion is to change line item 17, treasurer's salary, from $44,378 to $45,211, which was the requested amount under that line. And in line item 18, wages part-time to change it from $20,885 as recommended to $22,290, which was the requested line. And then line item 23, which is the tax collector's expenses, from $15,060 up to the $15,540 that was requested. All right, Dennis, you want to speak to it?
As you're probably aware, I put a motion a few town meetings ago to change the treasurer and collector positions from elected to appointed. Unfortunately, the tax collector's term ended a year before mine will in 2019. And it's a gray area. There's no rule on how to handle that. So there were proposals made to the selectmen. The tax collector offered to stay another year at the same, actually a 13% increase in salary, continue to take the fees that he makes approximately $15,000 to $17,000 a year, and keep the same hours, et cetera. And I thought about it, and I come up with what I thought was a better plan that I presented to the selectmen. I can go through all the numbers, but the bottom line is the slight increase that you see that the Finance Committee kind of knocked down a little bit doesn't reflect the roughly $8,800 in benefit savings and this $15,000 to $17,000 that I am giving to the town, and the future appointed treasurer collectors will do the same thing. Unfortunately, that will take a bylaw. There will most likely be a town meeting in the fall, and we'll put that article, and every year the fees that currently go to the tax collector will go to the town as another source of revenue. So the bottom line is my proposal came in roughly $19,000 less than what it would have cost to keep the tax collector currently paid in the position that the normal budget would have been. So I'd like to restore the numbers that the selectmen and I agreed to do both positions. Now, the year that I'm the collector isn't an official treasurer-collector position. I'm a treasurer and also the collector. But we're going to set it up so that when someone is appointed a year from now, it'll be running the way it should be, and we won't have to train for another year after that. We have promised with the 18-hour new position that I fit into all that to open up at 7 in the morning for the lots of people that come in and want to go to work and can't talk to the tax collector. We'll also be open one night a week, but we'll be there every day. There will also be backup. You know, the town accountant has backup. I have an assistant treasurer who's also a treasurer in another town. Eloise has backup. But the tax collector is currently the only position elected that there's really no backup. So if something should happen, it's a concern. There'll be 3 of us instead of 1. So there'll be plenty of backup. The 2 assistants, the treasurer assistant and the collector assistant, will also, in many towns, I'm setting it up like a lot of towns do, to hopefully work their way up so they could possibly be the next treasurer collector, so you can kind of teach internally. The numbers I'm asking for are about $10,000 less than what town accountants get, and so it's not like we're reaching for the stars here. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them, but I just hope you'll support this.
Finance Committee's comment on this motion?
Our comment on the motion is it's complicated, but I'll try to make it as simple as I can. We just talked, and we will support this motion. But I'd like to give some background, if I may, and I'll try to keep it to 3 minutes or less. This year, for the first year in at least 5 or 6 years, the requested increase in the town budget from all the different town departments exceeded the expected income. Does that make sense? So that meant we had to cut something, or we would have to raise your taxes over the 2.5% limit of Prop 2.5. We decided that we were not going to go for a 2.5 override because none of the requested increases were things that we saw as, if you will, mission critical for the town. They were, however, those of you that know organizational budgets, the two things that cost the most are people and facilities. And we ended up having to cut salary increases for just about everybody in town. That's why Dennis came up here. We did keep the cost of living adjustment for town employees, so everybody got a 2.7% cost of living increase. But any step increases or raises, we pretty much cut across the board in order to put our expenses in line with our income. We will support this change because this is combining two offices that used to be separate, but we will oppose others because the truth is that we balance the budget pretty closely, and if every department starts coming up and asking to reinstate the wages that we cut, we're going to be out of balance again, and we can't do that. So we do support this one, but I'm just letting further departments know we won't support further ones. Thanks.
So you are recommending this motion then?
Yes.
Does anyone else want to speak to the motion?
Could you give me a new bottom line? Could you give me a new bottom line?
So the motion is to change line item 17, treasurer salary, from $44,378 to $45,211. And line item 18, wages part-time under treasurer, from $20,885 to $22,290. And line item 23, expenses, this is under the tax collector's line, from $15,060 to $15,540 in the 2019 Finance Committee budget, general government, and that the total general government goes from $1,017,476 to $1,020,194.
I think it's 1,021,000, Barry.
You get a different number?
That's what I thought. Could I see the motion?
1,021,000?
I think that's what it was, yes.
$1,021,194?
Yes.
Dennis, is that acceptable? Where's Dennis? Dennis, is that number acceptable for that? Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. We now go back to the original motion. The original motion is to raise and appropriate, at this point, $1,021,194 to cover line items 1 through 46 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote, with the amendment that we had just voted. Public safety. Stan?
Moving right along. I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,743,797 to cover items 47 through 64 in the Finance Committee's FY 2019 budget, and to appropriate from the inspector's offset receipts account the sum of $132,250 to the following line items. Item 55, plumbing and gas inspector, wages part-time $80,000. Item 57, electrical inspector, wages part-time $52,250, and to appropriate from Highland Commons Public Safety Fund $300,000 to item 48, police wages full-time, and to appropriate from rescue squad receipts reserved for appropriation the sum of $100,000 to item 51, fire and EMS wages full-time, part-time in the Finance Committee's FY 2019 budget.
Motion is made and seconded. Now, the total of all of this is the $2,276,047 that's printed at the bottom of this section in the Finance Committee's recommended line. I'm going to just quickly go through this again. Raise and appropriate $1,743,797 to cover items 47 through 64 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget, and to appropriate from the Inspector's Offset Receipts account the sum of $132,250 to the following line items. Item 55, Plumbing and Gas Inspector wages part-time, $80,000. Item 57, Electrical Inspector wages part-time, $52,250. And to appropriate from the Highland Commons Public Safety Fund $300,000 to item 48, police wages full-time, and to appropriate from Rescue Squad receipts reserved for appropriation the sum of $100,000 to item 51, fire and EMS wages full-time, part-time in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget. All of that adds up to the $2,276,047. Does anybody want to speak to this motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. That's a second. Education. Buzz?
Mr. Moderator, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,030,268 to cover item 65 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget.
Okay. Motion is for the $3,030,268 for item 65. Anybody want to speak to that motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Public Works and Facilities. Stan?
I don't know about this. I get all the long ones, but anyway. I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $667,559 to cover items 66 through 77 in the Finance Committee's FY 2019 budget, and to appropriate from the Transfer Station Sticker and Recycling Offset Receipts account the sum of $90,000 to item 75, Transfer Station Expenses, and to appropriate $15,650 from the General Cemetery Receipts and $1,600 from the sale of lots to item 77, Cemetery Expenses in the Finance Committee's FY 2019 budget.
And again, the total of all of these is $774,809. So we've got $667,559 that we raise taxes to cover. We've got $90,000 from the Transfer Station Sticker and Recycling Offset Receipts account. We've got $15,650 from General Cemetery Receipts and $1,600 from the sale of lots. And all this money together covers that whole list under Public Works and Facilities. Is there anything to be said on this motion? Hearing nothing, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Human Services. Buzz?
We would make Dave do these, but he's on wheels right now, so. Mr. Moderator, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $85,315 to cover items 78 through 89 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget.
Motion is made and seconded. $85,315 for items 78 through 89. Anything to be said on this motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Culture and Recreation. Stan?
Aha, short one. I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $164,395 to cover items 90 through 96 in the Finance Committee's FY 2019 budget.
Motion made and seconded. $164,395 for items 90 through 96. Anything to be said on this motion? See no hands. All those in favor? Whoops, sorry about that. Yes.
Hi, Carol Leary, Randall Road.
No, you're not doing it. I don't know if
I am doing it, it's not doing it. Ready?
Well, let's see if you can get some
Oh,
sound.
right. Anyone in the back, can you hear me?
No, I'm not doing it.
All right, I don't want to get too close to this thing. I'm kind of gerbophobic. Anyway, just wondering, Carol Leary, Randall Road, just wondering on the expenses of the Recreation Committee going up 200%, 247 point something percent. I was wondering if the Recreation Committee can speak to that for me.
Hi, Greg Tremelling. I'm on the Recreation Committee. So there's some history here.
Speak into the mic.
The reason for the budget increase is directly related to recovery and restoration of the sports fields at South Commons directly across the street here. The way that the Recreation Committee had been raising money in the past is by renting those fields to specific organizations for soccer camps and other activities. Recently, we've lost a lot of those renters due to the condition of the fields. So the additional money that we're requesting is to rehab and bring those fields back up to a place where we can then rent them out and bring in revenue for our organization in the town so that we can do more for the town.
Is there something else to be said on this motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. The amount is $164,395. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Debt and interest. Buzz?
Mr. Moderator, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $342,698 and to appropriate the sum of $9,523 from septic loan receipts available for appropriation to cover items 97 through 98 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget.
And these two numbers, 342,698 and 9,523, add up to the total that's shown on the of 352,221. Anyone else want to speak on this motion? Hearing no one, I will ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. CMRPC.
Yeah, do we do these separately, Mr. Moderator?
Oh, you got one motion?
Well, I have it as three subcategories.
Yeah, we're
so-
doing three motions.
Okay. Just so we don't all have to get up and down, I'll do these. Intergovernmental expenditures for the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission. I move to raise and appropriate $782 to cover item 99 in the Finance Committee's FY 2019 budget.
Motion made and seconded, $782 for item 99. Anything to be said on this motion? Tim Wheeler of the Planning Board. That's working. It's working. Just get right up on it.
Tim Wheeler, 240 Pleasant Street. I apologize, I wasn't paying attention to this. The commission, it depends on a 2.5% increase in our responsibility on an annual basis. I've served on the commission as the delegate from Berlin for 28 years, and I think the value we get out of the commission is rather significant in regard to what we put into it. So I'd like to amend the recommendation to $802 and restore the $20 that's been cut back, because all the towns within our region, the 40 communities, are expected to increase their fee by 2.5%, and when it doesn't happen, all hell breaks loose. So I'd for $20, I mean, I'll give you the $20 if you want it, but that would be my motion.
Would you see the town clerk and reduce it to writing, please? We have a motion to amend the amount in the motion for CMRPC from $782 to $802. FinCom want to react?
We can afford the $20.
Anyone else want to speak on this one? If not, I'll ask you to vote. The motion now reads, the amendment is to go from 782 to 802. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. And now I have to do a final vote, which is, the motion now reads, I move to raise and appropriate $802 to cover item 99 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Assabet.
For Assabet, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $435,650 to cover items 100 through 101 in the Finance Committee's FY 2019 budget.
Motion made and seconded to raise and appropriate the sum of $435,650 to cover items 100 to 101 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget. Does anyone want to speak to this motion? Lynn Ryan, member of the Assabet Valley School Committee from the town of Berlin.
Just as always, I'd like to say, take us by the gross increase percentage, which is 3.79%. Last year, the money we gave back, or the budget went down because of population decrease. This year, it's increasing because of an increased student enrollment, along with the gross budget increase. I'd like you to take a look at the capital outlay. It's going down well, it's a 25-year bond. We're in the third year. It's going to be going down about $2,000 a year for the rest of the bond, well, for the next 10 years, and then it goes down about $1,000 a year. I hope you'll all take home one of these books and peruse it and see what we do. And I'd like to take an opportunity to thank those among you that serve on the program advisory committees at Assabet. Your input is invaluable to the technical programs, and I hope that anyone who has an interest in their craft will pursue looking at the participating on one of those committees. Thank you.
Anyone else that wants to speak on this motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote.
For Tohoto, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,158,680 to cover items 102 and 103 in the Finance Committee's FY 2018 budget. 2018, 19, 20, whatever.
Motion made and seconded to raise and appropriate $3,158,680 to cover items 102 to 103 in the Finance Committee fiscal year 2019 budget. Anything to be said on this motion? Anyone else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Miscellaneous benefits and insurance. Buzz?
Mr. Moderator, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,730,438 to cover items 104 through 111 in the Finance Committee's fiscal year 2019 budget.
Motion made and seconded to raise and appropriate $1,730,438 to cover items 104 to 111. Anything to be said on this motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, no. Passes in the affirmative. Oh, that's all right. Okay. All right. That's got to be done in record time. Article 9. We have cemetery money, accepting cemetery perpetual care money. Bob Guild of the Cemetery Commission.
I move to accept the sum of $2,400 for cemetery perpetual care.
Motion made and seconded to accept the sum of $2,400 for cemetery perpetual care. Anything to be said on the motion? Finance Committee recommend? I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 10, highway funding, Chapter 90 bonding. Highway Superintendent Keith Clemmer.
I move to appropriate the apportionment of Chapter 90 transportation bond issue monies in the amount of $190,833.
Motion made and seconded to appropriate the apportionment of Chapter 90 transportation bond issue monies in the amount of $190,833. You want to speak to the motion? Finance Committee's comment? Finance Committee recommends. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? This is money we get from the state to repair major roads. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 11, the library count. Janet Lamy of the Library Trustees.
I move to transfer the sum of $50 from the Anna Hunt Fund to the library account and to further authorize the acceptance of any other monies from various sources to the library account.
Motion made and seconded, and it's the same as the language in your article. Finance Committee's comment? Finance Committee recommends. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Motion carries unanimously. Article 12, see if the town will vote to fund the sum of $110,000 for the replacement of playground structures at Berlin Memorial School, and we have other things listed under it for other sources of money. For a motion under Article 12. Please.
Yeah.
Yeah. Edward Galt from the school committee.
Yeah, my name's Edward Galt, 29 Village Lane.
Yeah, you need to speak more directly into it.
School committee. Edward Galt, 29 Village Lane. I move to transfer from the Highland Commons Cultural Fund $50,000 and to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to be expended under the direction of the Berlin School Committee for the purpose of the replacement of the playground structures at the Berlin Memorial School and any costs related or incidental thereto, including all associated expenses.
The motion is to transfer from the Highland Commons Cultural Fund $50,000 and raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 to be expended under the direction of the school committee for replacement of playground structures. Do you want to speak to it, Ed, or do you want to have someone else speak to it? Yeah, okay. Come forward, introduce yourself, dear.
My name is Laura Williamson. I live on 2 Kendall Road. So we have gathered together as a concerned parents, teachers, and staff of the Berlin Memorial School to come up with a new proposal for new playgrounds. The playgrounds that are out there right now are outdated. Most of you probably have slid down the giant slide that's located on the larger children playground, which is grades 1 through 5. So we're looking to bring our playgrounds into the 21st century. So we have activities for them to do, climbing structures. We're going to keep the traditional slides, swings, and try to do some more activities that they can use, especially for ADA, so children with disabilities. Currently, right now, our playground does not have those capabilities, so if a child came in, we would need to upgrade for that. These are the current pictures of our playground. The playground on the left is the grades 1 through 5. So you can see there's a giant slide, 8 swings, and a jungle gym. And on the right side is our smaller children playground. It's for pre-K through K. We have a small slide, 8 swings, and 1 climbing structure, and a balance beam that's not developmentally appropriate for that age. These are our proposed playgrounds, so that we basically went to companies that are local, and we got a quote. We got 3 quotes just to determine what is the average playground costing, so that we can come to you with our own proposal. So again, on the left is the grade 1 through 5 playground. It's going to have many different activities. It's going to hold approximately 85 to 90 children. Right now, currently, 3 grades go out to recess at one time. So grades 3, 4, and 5 are at recess at one time, and then grades K, 1, and 2 are at recess another time. So this playground will be ADA certified. It will meet all safety codes for the state of Massachusetts as well as the federal government, and will have a fall height of under 8 feet. The current slide that's out there has a fall height of approximately 11 feet, which is not allowed at this point. The small playground for the 2 to 5-year-olds holds approximately 45 to 50 children. It is also ADA compliant with many activities for children on the ground. It will also pass safety codes, and the fall height is under 4 feet, and that is what is required now for children under the age of 5. The areas in purple are the placement for the new playground areas. The large placement over there is the current area for the playground with a small increase that will not exceed the side of the building, so it will not go in front of the school. So it'll go flush with the school wall. The small one for grades pre-K through K, it will stay exactly the same, but we will move the swings away from that area, and you can see that in the small rectangle up top. So the swings will be moved there for safety, so that kids don't get hit by walking behind it, and it'll allow room for the new play structure that would go in there and would replace the slide, the monkey bars, as well as the balance beam. As you can see, there's many benefits to a new playground. One that's just old and doesn't meet new safety codes that have been created since the playground's been put in. It's no fault to our school or our town. It's just that 20 years ago, the safety codes were not the same as they are now. We also just need to be current with our ADA, so the Americans with Disabilities Act. We must be current. We must have opportunities for children to play at any age and development. We're also looking for a playground that has 15 years warranty. That's for the steel as well as rubber bolts connections. So this playground should not need to be replaced for another 20 years. We're looking at mulch options, rubber as well as wood, and we have a slide on that in 2 slides from now. This is just an example of the mulch. This mulch in this picture is rubber mulch, and that is right now what the Consumer Product Safety Commission, or the CPSC, is recommending for playgrounds. We can still do engineered wood mulch as well, but you'll see the cost differences on the next slide. Oop. Sorry. Mulch is important not just for the good looks, but it's also designed to reduce injuries. So falls from different equipment is the #1 cause of injuries for children. And the function is not to stop them from falling, it's just to reduce the severity of the injuries that would occur if they do fall. So the mulch actually has to go through many different certifications. So it has to be recommended and approved by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, as well as EPA and PEMA. So we know that the quality of the mulch that we get, whether it's rubber or wood, is going to be certified and appropriate for our children. I'm sorry, it's really hard to see. I didn't realize it'd be so blurry. I don't know if we can adjust that. Basically, the breakdown of the mulch is that rubber mulch is more expensive. However, you don't have to do maintenance and or replacement of rubber mulch. So rubber mulch, once you put it down, you only have to add about 10% to your playground area about every 5 years. However, if you use wood mulch, you have to replace about approximately 15% every year. So even though it would cost approximately $18,900 for our mulch, for rubber mulch, the end product would only be $21,000. If we did hardwood or pine mulch, it ranges between $9,000 and $12,000 to put in. However, it would be an additional $7,000 to $8,000 over the course of 5 years to replace the mulch. So these are why we're leaning towards rubber mulch, so there's less maintenance and less cost that we have to propose or plan throughout the years.
Okay, yeah, done.
This is our cost breakdown for the project. So using the quote that we received from local vendors, we are anticipating approximately $28,000 to $29,000 for the preschool unit, approximately $61,000 to $62,000 for the grade 1 through 5, which is a total of about $90,000. The installation cost is $30,000. New structure, freight and demo of old structures is approximately $17,000 to $18,000. Removal of mulch, $3,000. Rubber mulch and base material, $21,000. Mulch installation, $2,000. So the total project cost is approximately $163,000, $923. Our source of funding right now is we're requesting $50,000 from the mitigation fund, $60,000 from the capital planning for the school committee. We are fundraising by the committee approximately $30,000 to $32,000, and grants, sponsorships, and donations would round out the total funding of approximately $164,000. That's it.
Thank you. Finance Committee. Finance Committee has a printed recommendation that covers this in the same amounts from the same sources. Is there anything else that wants to speak to motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. What? I'm sorry, missed it. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Tricia Concannon. I live at 79 South Street, and I'm here as a representative of the Berlin Economic Development Committee. Playground Committee spoke with us on 2 separate nights about the playground, and we voted in favor 3-0 with 2 abstentions. And I also want to say, as a parent of a child that went through the BMS, spent 5 years here, that the playground is old and it needs to be replaced. So I am personally going to vote in favor of the playground, and I hope you do too. Thank you.
Anyone else? Walter Bickford.
Walter Bickford on South Street. Needs to be a skunk in every lawn party, I guess, but I mean, the thing that strikes me, we could buy 5 police cruisers for a few pipes and ropes for a playground. And the emotion on this thing, our kids are our future, absolutely. I had kids. I have grandchildren. I have twin girls, 5 years old. They'll be at the house in June and with us for 2 months. I can't wait. I built them a tree house. They climb trees. They have a tire hanging from a rope in a tree they swing in. We have a limb over the swimming pool down in Northbrook. They lean and jump in it. They run around. They catch frogs and snakes. I guess I'm sitting listening to this artificializing, if that's a word, of what we've done in the country all our lives. Our kids are our future. Let them go out and be innovative. You know, I went to University of Alaska one time, and there were some studies on dexterity and innovation. You know who the most dexterous and innovative kids in the world were? Eskimo kids. They took bones from animals. They made sleds. They had dogs. And they did things on their own. They built snow houses, snowmen. I mean, $170,000 for a playground? I just got back from Madrid a little bit, the biggest park in the city of Madrid, They have 2 or 3 playground areas. I mean, none of them match what we just heard. I guess you might, if you don't know, I'm against this, number one. But what I'd like to know from the committee, has this, what we have, been condemned? I mean, we make a lot of silly moves because we're afraid of being sued all the time. Kid goes home with a scratch on his shin, but nobody in Berlin would do that. But I mean, people are always afraid of suing because Junior got a scratch. Big deal. It's good for him. So I guess out of just the idea, we can buy 5 police cruisers for what we're paying for a few pipes and ropes. It just doesn't sit with me. But the most difficult part of opposing this is opposing the people that are proposing. I mean, we've got a great recreation committee. I support them. They've done a lot of good things. They're more energetic than they have been in the past. But, if we vote this down, it'll be back again, trust me. But I think I put a cap on it of, let's say, $80,000 and see what they can come back with, because this is just ludicrous in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Lynn Salee, 2 Kendall Lane. I would share some of the history of the same gentleman that just spoke ahead of me, and in all due respect, I'm 75, so I can remember the days at Halloween we used to tip over the outhouses. We smashed pumpkins on the front lawn and on the porches. We used to swim in the creek. I was from the Midwest, so we had a creek. We didn't have a stream or brook. So some of these things go back a long ways. However, 2 things I want to point out to you. Number one, we're talking about our youth, and this is part of the educational process. Play and recreation and recess time is not separate from education, it's part of it. Secondly, when the gentleman and I used to play in the creek and swing in the back, and he can do whatever he wants on his property. However, you as townspeople are responsible for the school and this property. And if somebody gets more than a scratch, and if there's a lawsuit because somebody gets hurt because there's no ADA and because a slide's too high, your surface is not impact attenuation, any of these lawsuits happen, I'm talking, and I know from history, we're talking in the millions of dollars for lawsuit settlements. So that's part 2. We're not here to scare you, but we are here to say, let's provide what the kids need, and we'll go forward with that. Thank you.
Buzz?
Hi, Buzz Harris, 21 Village Lane. This, by the way, is me speaking as me, not me speaking on behalf of the Finance Committee. But I just wanted to go over the costs a little bit since they were brought up. When this request came in front of the Finance Committee, and I think also in front of the Select Board, we might have been able to fund it entirely out of mitigation money or other funds like that if we'd really worked hard at it. There might have been enough. But we decided that it was more important that the citizens of Berlin make a choice. So the committee agreed to raise a chunk of the money themselves, which I wish more committees would do, so thank you. We agreed to provide $50,000 out of the mitigation money that we have available. And then the tax money from the town of Berlin that we would all be responsible for as taxpayers is $60,000. So that's the total cost that we would have as taxpayers. Also, this structure would provide opportunities for kids to play on who may not have the physical ability to swim in the creek, which I also did. I'm a kid from the South. But, you know, if you're in a wheelchair or have some kinds of mobility impairments, you can play on this. You might have trouble playing in the woods. Thanks.
Motion. We can spend time applauding, or we can go to a vote and you can get it done. Anybody else want to speak on it? If not, I'll ask you to vote. The motion is for $50,000 from the Highland Commons Cultural Fund and to raise and appropriate $60,000 be expended under the direction of the Berlin School Committee for the replacement of playground structures at the Berlin Memorial School and any costs related or incidental thereto, including all associated expenses. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Motion carries in the affirmative. Article 13, school fire alarm system. Cliff?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Cliff Laporte, Gates Pond Road. Mr. Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash $30,000 for the purpose of upgrading or replacing the fire alarm panel, replacing smoke detectors and related improvements, and any costs related or incidental thereto to enhance fire safety within the Berlin Memorial School, said sum to be expended by the school committee.
Motion is made and seconded. It's in the same general language as the article. Do you want to speak further to it?
Briefly, the fire system is, everything's old tonight, I'm just noticing. The fire system is old, and there's some evidence that it's not functioning properly, and it's time to make the necessary improvements. As we all know, fire safety is very important in a public setting, and this is a public school, and the school committee wants to do right by that.
Finance Committee has a printed recommendation that supports this motion. Anything further? Anyone else want to speak to this motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 14 is the over my head here. Cliff.
Cliff Laporte, that's right. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mr. Moderator, I move to transfer from free cash $103,000 to make modifications to the interior and/or exterior of the building at Berlin Memorial School in order to provide safe access to the HVAC equipment above the ceiling in the gymnasium and any costs related or incidental thereto, said sum to be expended by the school committee.
Motion is made and seconded. It's in the same language as the article. You want to speak to it more, Cliff?
I'm not a technical expert. It's tough questions. But I'll just give you a little snippet, and if you need more information, I have someone here I will ask the moderator to allow to speak to it. My understanding is the HVAC system, which is above us, cannot be safely maintained or inspected. Perhaps an improper engineering design when the school was built. And so we need money so that we can create a suitable access to that location and to install a steel beam which would support the HVAC system, AC system.
Okay.
I think that's my non-technical skill.
Thank you. Finance Committee has a printed recommendation at this level. Is there anything else to be said on this motion? Anybody that would like to bring up a ladder and go in this closet and get it in there next to the sound system and climb up there and go around in a place that has no floor, have it. Go at it. Anyone else to speak about it? If not, motion is for $103,000 to make modifications for safe access to the HVAC equipment above the ceiling in the gymnasium. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries in the affirmative. And we go to Article 15. Angela?
Angela Yildiz, 5 Marlborough Road. I move to transfer from free cash $16,000 to purchase and install a water softener filtration system in Berlin Memorial School and any costs related or incidental thereto. Said sum to be expended by the school committee.
Motion is made and seconded. $16,000 as the article indicates. Did you want these notes? I want it back after.
So this is essentially preventative maintenance. We have hard water, which causes deposits in the kitchen equipment, so we have to service it frequently. So what this will do, the water softener will decrease the amount of service and decrease the amount of breakdowns in the equipment.
Finance Committee has a printed recommendation at this level. Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? Bob?
Bob Blair, Summer Road. With all of the problems we've had with the boilers in this school and the high cost of replacing them, this says that this water treatment is related only to potable water, kitchens, and so forth. Is the water going into our boilers also being treated? Is that being treated with this process, or is that a separate process? Because a boiler that's going to last a long time cannot have deposit building qualities to it, and I would hope this either would address it or there's a separate system to do so.
Angela?
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to call up our facilities manager, Steve Pusteri.
Certainly. Please introduce yourself.
Steve Pusateri, facilities manager for the school district. Excuse me. The system that we're installing is everything for domestic hot water, for the water heaters and all the kitchen equipment. The boilers, the existing oil burner, and the 2 new wood pellet burners aren't impacted by the water. It's a closed system that's a 25% glycol solution in it. So anytime that we need to add any more fluids to the system, it's a glycol concentrate. So it only is impacting the domestic hot water that's being utilized in the kitchens when hard water is superheated through the steam units and the dishwashers. It's like a buildup of Jun compound. We've already had to replace the dishwasher because of it. We're replacing the steam unit, and what's been happening is when the health inspector has been coming in to do the inspections, the kitchen is constantly failing because of the buildup, and the dishwashers don't reach the right temperature. So this will address all the hot water domestically in the building for the kitchen units and the hot water heaters. So they're 2 separate systems. I do appreciate the concerns about the boilers, but it's a completely closed system with a glycol loop. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on the motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. It's $16,000 for new water softener filtration system. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes by unanimous vote. Recreation Wellness Trail.
All right, so projector's warming up.
Start with the reading.
Yeah, I'm going to read it. All right. I move to transfer from the Highland Commons Cultural Fund $30,000 and raise and appropriate the sum of $20,000 to be expended by the Board of Selectmen for the construction of a wellness trail, walking path, and associated expenses at South Commons. That is the article. So I'd like to take a minute.
And wait just a second. Okay. So this is for $30,000 from Highland Commons Cultural Fund, and to raise and appropriate $20,000 to be expended by the selectmen for the construction of a wellness trail, walking path, and associated expenses at South Commons. Okay. Now, if you want to speak further, you may.
Thank you.
Short. Keep it short.
Yes, I do want to be sensitive to everyone's time, so thank you for the opportunity tonight. I want to tell you about this exciting project we've been working on this year. What we're proposing is a walkway that's going to go around South Commons that's approximately 1 mile long. South Commons is across the driveway here from the school, and if we can look at the map here behind me, there was a handout earlier in case you haven't seen it. I'm going to borrow this for a second here so I can point. So we are located here. We're in this room right here. So the walkway is going to go around the perimeter of all the sports fields. That includes the soccer, the baseball, and there's a little leg here off the side that connects over to the Northbrook Village property, and there's a little connection to Keys Road right here. So that's where the trail is going to be located. This is going to be a 5-foot wide paved surface, so it's low maintenance cost. It's going to be completely level when finished with the height of the dirt. So there's no curb, no trip hazard. And at 5 feet wide, a person 6 feet tall will not be able to see this path at a distance of greater than 100 feet. Based on the height of the grass and the projection angle. So if we look at, next slide, if we look at the reasons why this is a good project to do, it benefits all people. Yeah, Berlin has plenty of trails. It's great. It's very rural. I've never seen somebody with a stroller up at Mount Pisgah. So it's highly accessible. It connects the town. There's already parking. It's centrally located. Has access near to the downtown area. And it's an all-weather, low maintenance surface, like I mentioned before. Next slide. So we've been working on cost estimates. You can see the table behind me. I won't go through every line item, but basically we've talked to a lot of construction experts, and we think we can get this done for under $80,000. Next slide. So where's the money coming from? So we are asking for $20,000 from the taxpayer account. All the other funding sources will be either grant money, fundraising from our own personal recreation budget from the revolving account, and then $30,000 from the Highland Commons Mitigation Fund. So it is what's called a mixed funding. Last slide. I wanted to highlight the maintenance cost. Recreation already takes care of the trash pickup, the porta potties, the bubbler. All the facilities here at South Commons is part of the Recreation Committee's responsibility. So by locating this project here, we get all of that. We get to leverage all of that because we're already doing it. We are going to reserve about $700 a year for potential maintenance in the event that we have to do crack sealing or blacktop seal coating in the future. We don't expect that with a paved surface to have many maintenance issues, which is why we're going that direction. Thank you. Any questions?
Finance Committee has recommended this in writing already. Anything else to be said on the motion?
Marcia Johnston, 32 Baker Road. I grew up at 115 Pleasant Street. This project abuts my parents' property. I'm a little concerned about the path that is proposed to Northbrook Village. In one place it said it was going to be paved, then another place it said it wasn't going to be paved, and when I spoke to Julie tonight, she said there wasn't going to be a path at all. So I'm just wondering about that section of it. I think having the path around South Commons is a great idea. I'm wondering about the cost, paving to Northbrook Village, especially if Northbrook Village is not town-owned land. It's private property. So I just wanted to have those questions addressed, please.
Thank you. So over the course of the project, it has evolved a little bit. It is correct that the initial concept was to bring the path all the way to the parking lot of Northbrook Village. However, that's not town property, and we did decide to truncate the path at the end of the town property. So we're still connecting to the Northbrook property, but we were able to reduce the cost of the project by keeping it on town land specifically. And if Northbrook Village chooses to do so, they could bring a path of their design up to connect. The projector's loading again here. As it's warming up, we can see this yellow outline on the map is the Northbrook Village property. In this section right here is where the Berlin town property abuts Northbrook Village, and you can see the dotted line comes in and turns around and then continues back to South Commons. The original thought that we started investigating was bringing this trail all the way down to Northbrook, but that is no longer the plan.
Are there others? Walter Bickford.
Walter Bickford, 12 South Street. I oppose this at this time for this reason. The Conservation Commission, we've got 25 miles of trails. We are working right now and have been for 2 or 3 years on an ADA-approved trail. The Highway Department, and we're very grateful to them, spent a whole day hauling in fill and developing a ramp that can be, with a little more grading, made into ADA approved. It goes down at the corner of Pleasant and Central Streets and could follow the field out through and across the culvert, which would be wheelchair accessible, out to this magnificent great oak out in the woods that Dan LeBlanc cleared up and exposed a few years ago. And I put some time into keeping clean too, but we plan on having a picnic table there and a place where seniors could go out. We've been approached by a couple of seniors to make that a little easier and more accessible. It will not be paved. The idea is that it's cheaper for paved simply isn't true. 75% of the rail trails in the country are unpaved. 80% of the people that use them, including people with handicaps and people with strollers pushing babies, want to keep it that way. They oppose it when somebody wants to pave it. So I'm thinking, what my thought is, and the chairman of the Conservation Commission is committed to this, we're going to meet with the Recreation Committee. I've talked to my neighbor who's here someplace, and we should meet for a year. We should talk all this over. Maybe we should continue with this, but it should be part of an overall town plan for our outdoor recreation and hiking and walking and nature walking. We're starting to we're having a bird song walk come up. We want tree identification. We want different nature walks, getting the kids on it. There's a person in town right now that has a private business taking children out and teaching them about nature, and she uses that area there. But there needs to be more coordination. The Conservation Commission is committed to it. We hope the Recreation Committee is, in fact, I know they are, but we need to get together, and we need to talk it over and look at a town-wide plan. And we don't want a paved, black paved stretch going around our town fields. There's just too much pavement now. So I say put it on hold with a no vote, and we'll work on it through the year.
Are there others that wish to speak?
Hi, Suzanne Clisham, 12 Collins Road. Personally, for me, I think it sounds like a great idea to have a place that I can bring my mother and her walker to walk while the kids are playing on the fields, or the kids can learn to ride bikes. There's just not a lot of space in Berlin to go for long walks, where safely, anyways. And the walkway system here isn't really set up yet, so it would be nice. And I love the nature too, and I go out in the woods, but I can't bring my small nephew or my mother on those walks. Thank you.
Are there others?
Just want to real quickly respond to some of the previous comments. Walter, I'm glad you brought up the town plan. There was a master plan about 18 years ago that had this walkway included in it. And our efforts this year were to continue that master plan that was created about 18 years ago. I wanted to touch on the surface, paved versus not. In terms of maintenance, asphalt is certainly easier to maintain. If you're talking about installation costs being higher, okay, but what year after year after year, the town will have to then pay to fill in ruts, potholes, mud. You go for a walk, somebody rides a bike on it, now there's a big rut, somebody twists an ankle. It's just not the same. So we do believe that the asphalt is the right solution there. It will be ADA compliant, and it's ready to happen now as opposed to next year. And we would like to work with you on the project that you referenced. I do want to see this tree. It sounds like a nice tree. So that's what I had. Thank you.
Are there others?
Hello, Lawrence Holyoke, 11 Turner Road. I just want to say I'm super excited about this project because I have 3 little kids, and the only walk I can really do with my kids is up Derby Road and up Linden, and with my double wide stroller and a baby in a carrier and usually a dog, I take up a whole lane, and it's terrifying because the cars, no one's paying attention, people come flying over those roads. And so I just want to say I would love to have a safe place I could bring my kids and dogs, and my kids don't even have a place to go learn how to ride a bike. They can just do a circle around the driveway. So to have a place I could bring them on the weekends and stuff, it would be awesome. So full support.
Ken Porter for Brent Ave. About a year ago, my doctor said you're pre-diabetic, and I've got all sorts of drugs for you, all that shit. Excuse me. So I figured I better start walking, and I did. And one of my friends introduced me to the rail trails, and I've been riding since last July, I guess, the rail trails in Hudson, Marlboro. I think it goes all the way out to Stowe. I think it's 11 miles from one end to the other. We tend to loop back, and we normally get a 16-mile ride in. We also ride Air to Nashua, New Hampshire. I like that trail because I think we only have to cross roads twice, maybe 3 times. Whereby the Hudson one, you have to go through Hudson Center. It's a little bit crazier. You can't beat having rail trails. There's houses along the path where people set up picnic tables on their property that abut it. They say hi to everybody on the typical Saturday when we take a ride up to Air. There's people with, kids on training wheels, horses, because the path is paved in the middle and there's about 5 feet on each side for horses or dogs, whatever. It's huge and would definitely help everybody's health, just go walking around. And regarding dirt paths and all, it might be great in the middle of the summer when it's dry, but as soon as it gets wet, you're going to have ruts and wet and all that, where it's so much easier. It's a win-win. Paved trails, 3 miles isn't much, but it's great for the younger kids learning how to ride a bike. Typically, you can't ride many bikes on sidewalks in town because you're probably hard-found to find them. And they're probably not flat when you find them anyway. And you definitely don't want the kids near cars, so this is ideal where it abuts the whole field.
Thank you. Someone else? Janet? Janet Campbell?
I'm Janet Campbell from Pleasant Street. I want to tell you, as an old person with thin skin, falling on pavement is not good. It scrapes your skin off. Falling on dirt does not. And hard-packed dirt is good. I have climbed mountains and gone on trails all through New Hampshire and Maine. I grew up here. We didn't have sidewalks. We didn't have playgrounds. We didn't have people worrying about what we were going to play on or where we were going to walk. And I think paved surfaces are a disaster if you're old. Thank you.
Angela?
Angela Yildiz, 5 Marlborough Road. I work with low-income seniors for my profession, and they're having a walkway like this near Northbrook Village is huge. I can't tell you how excited I am about this for that very reason. Having seniors get out and walk, and I unfortunately disagree with the woman that just spoke. I do think a paved surface is better. A lot of seniors I work with are at a fall risk. A lot of them use a cane or a walker. I prefer the paved, and I just think for social, emotional, physical health, the location of this trail is phenomenal.
Someone else? No?
Call the question.
Is there a second to the motion to take the question up now? Motion made and seconded to call the question. This will cut off debate. It will require a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of ceasing the debate and moving to the vote, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries by the required 2/3 vote. The motion is for $30,000 from the Highland Commons Cultural Fund and to raise and appropriate $20,000 for the Wellness Trail. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Article 17, Police Cruiser. Selectman Lisa Wysocki.
I move to transfer from Highland Commons Public Safety Fund $40,000 to purchase and equip a new police cruiser to replace the 2000...
Can we please keep the talk to a minimum? We've got to be quiet while this continues. Yes, Lisa, continue, please.
To replace the 2013 Ford Interceptor SUV, said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen.
Motion made and seconded to transfer from the Highland Commons Public Safety Fund $40,000 to purchase and equip a new police cruiser to replace the 2013 Ford Interceptor SUV, said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen. Lisa?
We plan to replace these vehicles on a regular basis so that we don't have to replace them all at once. We've replaced them one at a time over the years, and this is just the regular replacement of the police cruiser.
The Finance Committee has a printed recommendation at this level. Does anyone else want to speak on the motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 17.
18?
Excuse me, that's wrong. Article 18. Police radio equipment.
I move to pass over Article 18. Basically, they're looking into other options for the radio equipment at this time.
Motion is to pass over Article 18. Anything to be said on it? Hearing none, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 19, Fire EMS Ambulance.
Okay.
Lisa.
I move to appropriate $180,000 from Rescue Squad receipts, transfer $20,000 from the Highland Commons Public Safety Fund, and raise and appropriate $80,000 for the purpose of lease or purchase of an ambulance and related equipment. Said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen.
Motion is made and seconded for $180,000 from Rescue Squad receipts, $20,000 from Highland Commons Public Safety Fund, and $80,000 to raise and appropriate to purchase or lease for the purpose of lease or purchase of an ambulance and related equipment. Finance Committee has a recommendation printed to recommend this. Do you want to speak to it further, Lisa?
We actually deferred this purchase last year in order to let the ambulance receipts come to the point where we could pay for it. And the ambulance has actually been in for service multiple times this year, so I think it's really important that we go ahead and purchase the new ambulance.
Does anyone else want to speak to this motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Whoops. We just did the ambulance, right?
Yep.
Article 20?
21? Oh, I have... Which one's 20?
We did 19.
You just gave me 20. You still need to do 20. Article 20.
All right. I move to transfer from Highland Commons Public Safety Fund $39,000 for the purpose of purchasing fire EMS minor equipment, said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen.
Motion made and seconded for $39,000 for this purpose. Lisa?
This is for basic replacement of equipment for public safety that happens every year.
Finance Committee recommends this. It's already written in the motion, in the warrant, pardon me. Anyone else want to speak on this motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 21.
Okay. I move to pass over Article 21.
Motion made and seconded to pass over Article 21. Do you want to speak to that, Lisa?
They hope to bring this back in the fall.
With a little more developed for it?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyone else want to speak on it? If not, the motion is to pass over. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Okay. Article 22, highway dump truck.
I move to raise and appropriate $180,000 to purchase a combination dump truck and sander with a plow, and the related equipment to replace the 2003 combination truck and sander with a plow. Said sum to be expended by the Board of Health. Anybody paying attention? Thank you. Board of Selectmen.
Motion made and seconded for $180,000 for combination dump truck, sander with plow, and related equipment to replace the 2003 truck. Finance Committee has a positive recommendation on this. Do you want to speak to it, Keith?
Yeah, so what happened years ago when Denny bought these trucks, it was said that keeping the equipment for so many years is not very fruitful for the town because it costs an awful lot of money to keep them up. So they said keep them around 15 years. Well, this is going to be 16 years old, and we've been starting to put an awful lot of money into it, so it's really worth it to get rid of it now.
Anyone else want to speak to this one? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Hot top. Hot top. Article 20. Oh. Hey, the older folks got to go out and get some exercise.
I move to raise and appropriate $70,000 for the purchase of hot top to repair the town roads. Said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen.
Motion made and seconded for $70,000 for hot top to repair town roads.
This has been a common thing since I took over, I think for quite a while. What I do with this money is the Chapter 90 money, which is $193,000, I'll add that to it. It probably gets an extra quarter of a mile or so added on to the repair that I do each year at the roads.
Finance Committee has a printed recommendation approving this motion. Does anyone else want to speak to it? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 24. This is an article for the Cemetery Commission. I'm a member of the Cemetery Commission, so I'm going to step down, and somebody else will have to do this job for a few minutes. I'll call on the town clerk to take nominations for a temporary moderator for Articles 24 and 36.
Do I hear any names? Wait a minute, Chris Keefe. She's got a paper in her hand.
I nominate Timothy Wheeler as temporary moderator.
Are there any other names? If you're ready to vote, all those in favor? All those against? It's a vote.
Thank you. Article 24, South Cemetery paving. This is in regard to $15,000 for resurfacing. Mr. Ager, would you care to speak?
Barry Ager, 51 South Street, member of the Cemetery Commission. I move to transfer from free cash $15,000 to repave driveways in the South Cemetery. Said sum to be expended by the Cemetery Commissioners.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything further?
Not particularly. I talk enough.
Please speak
You've
into
got a
the mic.
paragraph underneath it that says something about it. We're doing some more of the driveways down there, and maybe another year or two we'll get most of the things done that need to be right now.
The Finance Committee has recommended this article by a vote of 4-0. Do you have anything else to add? No? And does anyone else have questions or comments? All right, then. The motion as printed is to transfer from free cash $15,000 to repave driveways in the South Cemetery. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Thank you very much.
Article 25, Assessors Software. Kevin Pond of the Board of Assessors.
I move to transfer from free cash $10,000 to update the software in the assessor's office and associated costs, said sum to be expended by the Board of Assessors.
Motion is made and seconded. The amount is $10,000. The Finance Committee has a printed recommendation that supports this. You want to speak further to it? Do you want somebody else to?
Nobody else here to speak.
Oh, she's not here? Okay.
You want to read it? We talked about it so long ago.
You have a paragraph of explanation there. Does somebody want more?
We talked about it a while ago, so I don't remember exactly the term, but I've been informed that it's just an upgrade to the current software.
Does anyone else want to speak to this one? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. You were convincing, Kevin. Lisa?
I move to transfer from free cash $35,500 to purchase building officials permitting inspectional services software and associated costs, said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen.
Motion is made and seconded to transfer from free cash $35,500 to purchase building officials permitting inspectional services software and associated costs, said sum to be expended by the Board of Selectmen. Mrs. Wysocki?
The current software isn't working quite as well for all the departments as we might have hoped. So the current building commissioner has recommended this. He's used it before. He feels that it will solve many of the problems. We also are in the second round of a grant, and we hope to get a little over $29,000 in that grant. So with luck, that will cover a lot of this cost.
Finance Committee recommends this amount. Anyone else want to speak to the motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 27. Library. Janet Lamy of the Library Trustees.
I move to transfer from free cash $25,000 for the purpose of drilling and installing a new well and any costs related or incidental thereto to comply with the Mass DEP legal regulations, said sum to be expended by the Library Trustees.
Motion is made and seconded to transfer from free cash $25,000 for the purpose of drilling and installing a new well and any cost related or incidental thereto to comply with the Massachusetts DEP legal regulations, said sum to be expended by the library trustees. Janet?
Well, Thomas is sick, so unfortunately he was going to speak to this, but there's a little summary here that talks about, well, you can read it, but we have a currently hand-dug well, which the Mass Department DEP does not feel is going to be compliant moving forward. So we're just trying to get everything, our ducks in a row, so that we can hopefully move forward in that area. It is a public water supply, so we're kind of mandated to have the appropriate compliance.
Finance Committee has a printed recommendation which supports this amount. Does anyone else want to speak to it? If not, I'll ask you to vote. This is $25,000 for a new well at the library. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 28, streetlight purchase.
Tim Wysocki of the Energy Committee. I move to transfer for free cash $25,000 for the purpose of funding a lighting consultant and the purchase and installation of streetlights and related equipment from National Grid and the conversion of existing streetlights to energy efficient and long-lasting LED. Same to be spent under the direction of the Board of Selectmen acting on the advice of the Energy Committee.
Motion is made and seconded for the $25,000 from free cash for funding the whole business with the streetlights. Tim?
I won't rehash the summary, but I just wanted to let you know that this is being done with the advice of the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. We will be receiving a grant and incentive of $8,474. The payback on this proposal is 2 years. It's a simple payback, and one of the things we need to do is fully fund the project, and then we'll be reimbursed by the state of that amount. The cost of purchasing the street lamps has been made to us as $1, and there are 69 lights in town.
Finance Committee has a recommendation in this amount for this purpose. Anyone else want to speak on the motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. $25,000 for the streetlight transfer. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Article 29. Yeah.
Mr. Moderator, I would like to move that we pass over this article, please.
Motion made and seconded to pass over the article. Thank you. Do you want to speak to it?
Yeah. Just quickly, we would like to have more time to study how we're going to go forward with using this funding mechanism. And I would also like to encourage folks to take a look on the back table. There is a letter or a memo, I guess you would say, of the municipal aggregation. It has some important information as far as energy rates, which will apply to participants of the program over the next 40 months. So please take one as you leave, or if you haven't done so already. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
So the motion at this point is to pass over. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 30. Chris Keefe.
I move to amend the Town of Berlin general bylaws by deleting Article 16, supplemental water supply, in its entirety and replace it with the new Article 16, supplemental water supply, as printed in Article 30 of the warrant for this meeting.
Motion is made and seconded to put in place a replacement Article 14 Article 16, supplemental water supply section. You want to speak to it, Keith? Chris?
There is a summary, I believe, that came in your warrant. If you'd like, I can read that, or I would also, my other choice is to ask the fire chief to come forward and speak to it.
Okay. Chief Z, you want to come up and talk about it?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Things are going so smoothly here, I don't want to hold things up. What we did was we just changed the bylaw so that there are some requirements. It was an either-or, but it wasn't defined as to who could make the decision on it. So it's going to be the authority having jurisdiction to decide whether a cistern goes along with residential sprinklers. So in a development of 3 properties or more, they'll have to be sprinklered. As you know, we don't have any municipal water in town, so it's important to take into consideration the time and everything it takes to get the fire department there. So the change in the bylaw basically is to require the residential sprinklers, and they may need to put in a cistern. We're trying to get away from the cisterns because they're costly to maintain, and when you have a development, it becomes to the on the ownership of the development to maintain it, and who pays for it, and how often is it maintained, things like that. So it becomes very cumbersome, and they leak and things like that. So the residential systems are very limited on annual maintenance.
Does anyone else want to speak to this motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no? No. Motion carries in the affirmative. Okay. Article 31, master plan money. Timothy Whittle of the Planning Board.
Tim Wheeler, 240 Pleasant Street. I'm on the Planning Board. I move to transfer from free cash $5,000 for the continued development of the master plan for the town of Berlin, said sum to be expended by the Planning Board.
$5,000 for the continued development of the master plan. Do you want to speak to it, Tim?
Yes, sir. Thank you. And the Planning Board wants to thank you for your support of this article. We've had this on the warrant for quite a few years now. As we've explained in the past, where some towns come to town meeting and raise $60,000 or $80,000 to do a master plan every 5 or 6 years, we've opted to do incrementally a part of the master plan on a continual basis. And in the past, we've worked on the open space plan with the Conservation Commission. We've worked on the housing production plan with the Housing Partnership, and we've worked on an economic development plan for the town. Currently, we're working with Central Mass Regional Planning Commission on a program called Complete Streets, which is part of the Community Compact, which the town has entered into with the Commonwealth. And that's currently underway, and that'll help us flesh out a transportation plan. And currently, we're also working with Rick Tainter, who years ago worked with us when we first wrote the article for the warrant for the Solomon Pond Mall back in '94. And he worked again with us when we developed some language for the master plan in '96. And he's retired now from the position of being planner for the city of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, and he's available now for us to utilize. And so he's come in and begun to go through parts of the master plan that we've worked on in the past. And we're coordinating some of the pieces and evaluating some of the benefits of some of the parts that we've passed in the recent years. So the money that we hope you'll vote tonight would be used to continue that work. Thank you.
The Finance Committee has a printed recommendation in this amount for this purpose. Does anyone else have anything to say on this motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote on the $5,000 for Masters Planning. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 32. Planning Board home-based contracting amendment.
Mr. Moderator, I move to amend the town zoning bylaw, section 541, table of home-based contracting business by adding the word registered before the word vehicle in each of the three categories.
Motion is made and seconded. It's in the same words as the article. Speak to it, Tom.
Sure. The Planning Board held a public hearing to consider Article 32 in the 2018 annual town meeting warrant on Monday, May 7, 2018. At this meeting, the Planning Board voted 5 in favor, 0 opposed to support Article 32.
Do you want to give any more explanation?
Sure. Last year, there was a situation where a home-based contracting business took a vehicle that they had registered and on the road and decided that they were going to change it into a storage vehicle. And we're trying to eliminate the creation of junkyards behind people's home-based contracting business.
Does anyone else want to speak to this motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by the required 2/3 vote. Article 33, large-scale solar. Ron Vobruska of the Planning Board.
I move to amend the town's zoning bylaws, section 590, large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations, as described in Article 33 of the warrant for this meeting.
Motion is to amend section 590 of the zoning bylaw as described in Article 33 of the warrant for the meeting. Ron?
The Berlin Planning Board held a public meeting to consider Article 33 of the 2018 annual town meeting warrant on Monday, May 7, 2018. At the Planning Board meeting on May 7, 2018, the board voted 2 in favor and 2 opposed to Article 33. Surveys we've had in the past have all come back with one common theme. The citizens of Berlin like living in Berlin and want to keep its rural character and its farms. Well, we would have a hard time keeping Berlin's rural character if the farms go away. Farms are in residential and agricultural districts, commonly referred to as RA districts. Plots of land in RA districts are mostly restricted to farms and residential use. We want to give an alternative to farmers that may be considering converting their farms into residential use. The proposed bylaw will allow farmers to erect large-scale solar installations with certain restrictions. An additional amount of land equivalent to the acreage utilized for the solar installation must be set aside and restricted from development. Also, we don't think anyone wants to view fields of solar panels in RA districts, so the bylaw will require adequate screening from abutters and the public way.
was amended. $590. In Section 320. Article 33. Yeah. I think this is I think the motion's all right. Section 320 is part of Section 590. So the motion is to amend the thing the way that the article says. And that's the motion, and we've got a report of the planning board that has 2 for and 2 against. Okay, others that wish to speak on this motion? Tim Wysocki.
Mr. Moderator, the planning board sought the opinion of the Energy Committee, and we are in favor of passage of this article.
The Energy Committee is in favor of it?
Yes, sir.
Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? I see a hand down here. Yeah. Richard.
Rich Mariani, 189 Gatesbond Road. I'd like to say initially, we had a preliminary meeting with the planning board at 6:30 before the meeting to just air what we felt our concerns were, and they were very gracious, and I understand where they're coming from. But I want you to consider something. Why change this zoning? I understand some farmers might want to do something else with their property, that's fine. But why open up the whole town of Berlin? Every residential area in this town will be opened up to large-scale solar voltaic power plants. They're power plants. They're huge, and they generate millions of megawatts of electricity. So if you live in a residential area and you have a view of any parcel or multiple parcels of land equaling 50 acres, then you're potentially going to be looking at a 25-acre plot, which, how big is a solar power plant? 1,089,000 square feet. So when you go out on your front porch, or you're sitting in your backyard, or you're picnicking, or whatever, or you're taking a nice walk through the woods, consider 1 million square feet of 12 by 12 foot glass panels staring back at you. It's dead space. The town certainly will gain some taxes from the solar company that erects them. No one else benefits then except the solar company, and they have every right to. I don't begrudge them that. But if you want to maintain the rural character of our town, I'm thinking there are other ways that a farmer, if he didn't want to, maybe if he didn't want to have houses built on his land, maybe we could increase the zoning ordinance that you got to have 2 acres to build a home. But you guys have driven by solar farms on the Mass Pike, other places, and you've seen them, and I can't imagine anyone saying, you know what, I'd love to sit out front, play with my grandchildren, or talk to my kids, and be looking at a minimum of 1,089,000 square feet of glass. Not to mention the devastation that it causes for wildlife. We've got plenty of deer and fox and coyotes and bluebirds, all in those big, wherever you live in Berlin, where you see these open spaces, if one farmer's got 50 acres and another farmer's got 50 acres, there's nothing stopping these solar companies from buying adjacent properties and really making it big. So, my only point is, why change what's already working for us? Let's keep the nature of the town the way it is. If a farmer says, look, I want to do this, maybe they do a special permit or something and do it on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Someone else want to speak to the motion? Lynn Ryan?
I just like one thing clarified, and that is the planning board voted 2-2 on this article. Did they take a separate vote to forward it to town meeting? And the next thing is, how many parcels in town would be affected? And my reading of this, if the planning board would address it, is that it would require a special permit and a site plan in order to do this. So again, what vote sent it to town meeting? Number 2, how many parcels in town would be affected? And also I'd like to know, we allow it in other areas, so it could be that you could be looking at something in another district. It still is going to be special permit. It's still going to require a site plan approval, which is not a guarantee.
Ron?
Yes, these large-scale installations are allowed only at this time in industrial districts and limited business districts, not in any kind of residential agricultural district. The number of sites in town is about 8 or 9 pieces of property that could possibly apply to use, to get a special permit to put one of these installations in.
Others wish to speak? Yes.
Carolyn McDonald, Gates Pond Road. Rich, I understand you don't want to see a big solar field, but the alternative might be 25 houses. And 9 properties with 25 houses each, that's going to be a dramatic population increase to the town. And unfortunately, we all would love to save these farms, but unless we actually buy them, we have very little control over what happens to the property.
Oh. Bill?
So, Bill Anderson, Peach Hill Road. So a question. So we have section 590 right now. The only change I see here is that if you take the 50 acres and put 25 acres away, is that the only change that this is making to that section?
has 3 pages of regulation or bylaw for the solar installations, and we're just adding another section for these on residential agricultural areas.
I'm not familiar with 590, but what are the restrictions on doing it now?
Well, the basic restriction is you can only do it on industrial districts or limited business districts. And this has another section to allow it in residential and agricultural.
Ron? This talks about section 590, but you've got, the article also includes 320.
Yes.
So you guys need to figure out what you want to do. What we voted.
I propose a change to Section 320, the table of principal use and regulations, by deleting a line and adding another line as printed in the town warrant, which effectively allows the solar installations in residential agricultural districts with a site plan and permit.
Talk to your people and draft an amendment if you want to put 320 in. The article included changes to Section 590 and also sections to 320, which is another section of zoning bylaw. When I was first looking at this, I thought it included, that was included with the other one, but it's not. It's a separate section. So the question is whether the motion maker originally intended to include the 320 section as well. So we're having an amendment drafted to include that. In the meantime, Buzz.
Buzz Harris, 21 Village Lane. I sound like the voice of God. This is me speaking as myself, not as a member of the Finance Committee. I'm just curious, I didn't hear an answer from the Planning Board to Lynn Ryan's question about, given that the vote was 2 in favor and 2 opposed, I mean, I don't know the rules, but I bet Lynn knows them better than I do. How this came to be on the warrant, if that's sufficient to authorize it showing up on the warrant. A split vote on the Planning Board, 2-2, right? Is that sufficient for it to show up on the warrant?
That wasn't about putting it on the warrant. That was at their after their public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Jim?
Jim McNichol, 113 Boylston Road. Thank you, Buzz. I didn't hear that either. I just, kind of a question. I mean, my background is trained as a landscape architect and visual assessments. I agree with the gentleman earlier about, in this town, trying to screen 25-acre arrays of solar panels and wondering a little bit more about what your thinking is about how this is going to fit into the town and why we would look at it that way. The only one that I know of that, I'm not quite sure of what the acreage it is. There's one over in Sterling, but it's out back in huge flat land, and they've had to put up you can see it as you drive out 62, you can still from there see the 8-foot high stockade fence out behind houses with scattered trees along there. So my other question is, when you get to the legal position and somebody proposes this, does there need to be more specification of what D requires, adequate screening from abutters than the public way? Is there a stronger definition of what you could require in our zoning somewhere, or is that up to each person's interpretation? I mean, how much could you require and push for?
That would come up during a site plan review. When the site plan is being reviewed, the approving authority would work with the applicant to see what would be adequate screening, and we would have to come up with something at that time. We don't know all the various screenings that are possible to put into the bylaw, so we leave it up to the site plan review.
Wayne?
Wayne Texera, Gates Pond Road. Living in Gates Pond Road, this issue did come up for our community. I think it's at least consistent that, the residents of Gates Pond Road question this, because it wasn't an issue then of not in our backyard, even though then it was, but now it could be in anybody's backyard. I mean, granted, there's only so many parcels perhaps, but I would agree with the last gentleman that spoke. That section D about abutters and even adequate screening, adequate's very generic. And I think I really wouldn't want to see that just being, discussing a special permit. We saw Highland Commons, we saw that they denuded the land right up to the property line, exposing all the homes when that was built, and then that had to go back and buffers established. So I think there's a lot that could be done, that if this was the desire of the town, that you could say, you know, how thick the screening could be. It could be in the bylaw. It doesn't have to be left up to generic to let zoning board of appeals or special permits, you know, define that. I think, you know, when we talk about, with all respect to Carolyn, I think that, you know, I agree that the farms and protecting them is important, and that's part of the rural character of our town, but so is not having these large types of solar panel arrays. If you drive around and see them, I guess I just don't have a lot of confidence with a 2-2 vote in this kind of descriptors that are in there now and leaving it open, because once you allow that use in a residential property, then it's a defined use of right that they can do it. They just have to meet criteria that is approved at that time. So I guess I'm not really a fan of doing that. And I just think if you're going to do it, I mean, I'm all a fan of, you know, energy and trying to do the right thing, but I'm also a bigger fan of Burlington, its character, and I'm not really a fan of solar arrays. So thank you.
Lynn Ryan.
Lynn Ryan, 255 Central Street. In another life, I also serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'd like to speak just generically about hearings and about special permits in particular. Council's here, and I think she can spring up if I'm misspeaking. But special permits are like licenses. They're not a given, unlike some other things that happen in town. And when we're talking about screening, it's been my experience over time that screening in one area may not be right for another area. For example, when we were working with Boundless Adventure, it's a hill. Now, they could put a 10-foot fence at the lot line, but that wouldn't help the neighbors at all, because what they're trying to screen is, you know, 50 feet up a hill, and that's where the neighbors want the screening. I think, and I can't predict the future, but I think the Zoning Board of Appeals on special permits has tried to be accommodating to the neighbors. Whether you believe in this or you don't believe in it, I would hate to restrict them to some specific given screening that's required, as opposed to working with the terrain in the particular lot in question. Thank you.
Mike?
Mike Buskey, 96 South Street. I don't really have anything to say about the article, but there is a typo. It says 539, and then it goes on to describe it as 593.
That's 539.
And then, but this is 593.
593. 5939. You have got to write out the motion so I can know what you're reading. That's right, but you got to write out the additional stuff you want.
Oh, yeah, dude, I'm talking about this.
Yeah.
That's a, by motion supersede.
590 and 593. That's okay. Yeah. In the zoning bylaw, there are sections by number, and the ones that end in a 0 are larger sections, and then the ones within them are other things. Is that supposed to be 593? So there's an error in the article. Yes, but the article says, you said as stated in the article, and it says by adding a new section 539, and then it says Article 593.
Yeah, it's a typo. It's a reversal of 93.
Yeah,
It's a typo of the warrant. It's probably going to switch.
that's right. And you didn't correct it in your motion. You've got a typo on the warrant. You've got a typo on the warrant that needs to be corrected, and then you've got the whole business of the Section 320 table, which is not included in your motion. Is there a motion to postpone action on this until tomorrow night? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Thank you. This matter can be taken care of by preparing an appropriate amendment or substitute motion, and we'll deal with it tomorrow night. Article 34, special article closeout. What?
You did not ask how many no's.
Oh, how many no's?
No!
Oh. Okay, we'll play the game. Some people don't want to go home. Okay, the motion was to postpone action until tomorrow night on it. And at this point, I'll again ask everybody to vote by voice vote. All those in favor of postponing action on this until tomorrow night, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. If you want to fight over it, we can count it, but the ayes have it. I understand the noes yell louder, but there aren't as many of them. You want us to count it? You can take it up tomorrow night and vote on it then. Article 34, the article closeout. Chris Keith.
I move to close out the remaining balances in the special articles listed in Article 34 to the original funding sources as cited in the article.
Motion made and seconded to close out the remaining balances in the special articles listed in Article 34 to the original funding sources as cited in the article. Chris, you want to speak to it?
These projects and purchases have been completed, and we want to return the money to the town.
Does the Finance Committee have a comment on this at this point? Finance Committee recommends?
Yes.
Okay. Finance Committee recommends this action. Does anybody else want to speak on it?
Barry?
Yes.
The Finance Committee has a request of the Select Board, which is that we would like all of the, this thing's sneaky. We would like all of the funds that are not nouns. I'm 50 and I forget nouns. Highland Commons funds, what are those? Mitigation, thank you. Yeah, we'd like the mitigation funds to go back to the appropriate mitigation account. We'd like the other monies to go into stabilization. It's just a request on our part. Okay, I think we did.
Is there a motion to amend the motion on the floor?
No, it was actually just a request.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak on it? If not, the motion is to close out the remaining balances in the special articles listed in Article 34 to the original funding sources as cited in the article. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting until tomorrow night? What? Oh, I'm sorry. Pardon me, we got it to Article 35. I apologize.
I'm a little afraid. You ready? I move to amend the Town of Berlin General Bylaws, Article 3, Legal Affairs, Section 3, by deleting the words $1,000 and replacing the text with $5,000.
Motion is made and seconded. It's in the words of the article. Chris, you want to comment on it, or just have somebody else do so?
Well, the current bylaw is for $1,000.
At this point, if it's over $1,000, the selectmen have to come back to the town to get the thing approved. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what they're trying to do is change it so that the selectmen can settle things up to $5,000.
Up to $5,000. The $1,000 was put into effect in 1951.
Yeah.
So this is inflationary.
Finance Committee have any comment on this? Anyone else want to speak on the motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Now is there a motion to adjourn until 7:30 tomorrow night? Huh? What? We will start tomorrow night with 36, and we'll do 36, 37, 38, and then we'll go back to anything that's left over.
Well, anything that's left over, is there including that coming before 6, 7, 8?
Well, the point is that if you look at the warrant, it says night number 2 is scheduled to open with these 3 articles. Article 36, 37, 38, after which we will proceed with any remaining unfinished business. So the other one will come after those 3. That's based on the fact that the warrant was issued that way. All those in favor of adjourning until tomorrow night at 7:30, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The meeting is adjourned. See you tomorrow night. Leave everything in place, please.